So we want to start this one off a little different, specifically because we're going to be talking about fascial mobilizers as one of the initial 4 applications within the SOMA process. Now, fascial mobilizers has been around for quite a long time, and it was developed and specifically utilized by Ian O'Dwyer, which is my buddy, compadre, and co-founder of SOMA. And so I want to start this off so we can give Ian the time to talk about the difference, because again, a lot of people who've been through PTA Global over the last decade have seen fascial mobilizers, but what we've seen is most people don't really understand what they are, how they work, and then how to do them, because it's a very technique-driven, simple, but technique-driven process that can be extremely powerful, but can actually go backwards if you don't do it right and you don't get it done the way that it's supposed to be done. And so I want to turn it over to Ian, who really is the founder and the innovator of this. And Ian, just give us some insight about, what the fascial mobilizers are, but more importantly, what's going to be different in SOMA versus what people may have seen in other aspects or other arenas that you've been in.
Roddy, the power of fascial mobilization was driven because of the frustration of what we were taught and what we've learned and what we've experienced. And, we'll speak about the rings as we go through the immersion of various parts of the body. And I feel, for me, being a person who had all the injuries under the sun, and the intention was to move, feel better, and be better. But unfortunately, what we were doing, what we were feeding the body, wasn't really giving me that outcome. And so when I started to sort of say, okay, what about these areas of the body that really need attention, that weren't getting attention? The fascial mobilization was an ability, and as you've said beautifully, I don't want this to be about just fascia, because it's not. This is actually a bonus. Understanding how we can take sections of the body that don't have the ability to, 1, mitigate stress, and 2, communicate to the brain, and get them to free up and get them to then stabilize, allows the body now to create this beautiful rhythm and timing that progresses them into whatever their goal may be. So it's interesting because, we spoke about 5 principles of what fascial mobilization was. And I think we've actually broken it down even more now into 3 simple principles, which we'll discuss at the immersion. But to understand the body is nothing more than fluid and pressure. And if we're going to start to create tension in certain areas, if we're going to create the connection of the brain, the breath, and the big toe, and if we can understand now that it's not about what the brain says, it's about what the brain feels and how it deciphers that information. So fascial mobilization, Roddy, simply put, is nothing more than a subtle rhythmical motion that allows the body to recapture its original patterns that the brain already knows. But the interesting thing about that is that 9 times out of 10, the person who's actually delivering the movement, let's call it a fascial mobilizer, is trying to structure the client in a manner that they can't feel it because they're being told what to do. Mm. Now, we'll delve back into that in the immersion when it comes to the coaching aspect about cueing and understanding and relating and moving. But what we think we know about fascial mobilization is only the very, very, very surface area. We've got now further into seeing how we can move people in all states, at all ages, getting amazing results if we have the humility to ask the body how it feels, what it needs, and moving it within its threshold to give it the outcome that it desires today based on the prep scale.
Yeah, and I think that's brilliant. And one of the things that you touched on that people really need to understand about SOMA is the fluid and pressure. And SOMA is all about creating hydration responses, creating mobilization of tissues, and then creating the activation. So it's this whole process. It's a whole schematic of getting things to move better, but being reconnected back to a movement sequence so that we have proper timing. It's not just creating range of motion.
No.
It's overcoming a dynamic systemic deficiency, and that's why we have different processes to do it. So that's awesome. And And I hope that gives some people some background that this is going to be a little bit of a rabbit hole. We're going to go down some rabbit holes, but it's going to be very applicable. We're going to show things and demonstrate things and show how things may work and how they don't if you do something different. So people will leave with an understanding of, okay, this is how I should be doing this to get a better response in most situations. This is what happens when I don't. A very unique approach and a very unique thing. So we're excited. And so with that, I'm sure we'll be back with more topics as we get more questions. Thank you, my friend, for your great delivery. And we'll be back soon.
Thanks, Ronnie.